Hi, everybody. This is Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama, and I'm coming to you live from my Facebook page, which is the Shaman Mama. And today, we're going to talk about a really juicy topic. Title of this broadcast is Awakening. How long is this going to take? Because I've got shit to do. I don't know if you can relate to it. I will be repeating that again. But awakening. Awakening. Well, for some people, well, let me back up a minute. For everybody, awakening means being elevated to higher consciousness. Okay? That's the simple definition. And for some people, that happens as what is called in the East a satori. In other words, a burst of enlightenment. For others of us, it comes with painful challenges that break down our egoic structure. And as that process is happening, we're suffering. So if you can relate to that, cool, because I can. And I'm going to be talking to that aspect because that is really the experience that gives rise to the question, how long is this going to take? Because, I mean, I've got a life to live. I've got shit to do. I've got stuff to accomplish. It's kind of like, I would liken it to the process of grief, which really doesn't care what your ego thinks. Grief is going to have her way with you. Awakening challenges are going to have their way with you. So whether the challenge has to do with illness or an injury, or changes in a relationship, or money, that's a big one too, or work. Suddenly the work you've been doing for X number of years it just isn't a fit anymore. So the common denominator is change, some kind of change. And what we know is that any kind of change, I'm sure I've got this set to public. Well, I think I have. We will continue. I'm wondering because nobody has showed up just yet. So the common denominator is change. And what we know about change is that even positive change creates stress. Okay? Awakening challenges are usually great big honking challenges. My first one was when I was in my mid-20s. And it started with anxiety attacks, panic attacks that were so scary. And that proceeded to really what I would call a fragmentation of my former personality structure. I mean, it was big time. And, you know, this question, how long is this going to take? Because I've got shit to do. I had a child to raise. I had a toddler. I had a little girl. And so I was having to maintain some kind of balance and grounding and center while I was dealing with panic attacks and fragmenting personality and losing the anchors that had defined me in my life. I could tell you now, in a transition from good little Catholic girl to radical hippie chick, feminist, okay? But at the time I was unraveling, picture Wile E. Coyote, and he's running and running and running, and he comes to the edge of the cliff and he doesn't stop running. His feet keep going. And so he's suspended between the two cliffs. That's what it can feel like. Excuse me, with awakening challenges. They tend to be very deep, kind of like an earthquake, you know, that shakes your foundation. Again, it could be the loss of a primary relationship. Suddenly a marriage falls apart, or a primary relationship falls apart, or someone you love dies, or suddenly you find you have no money. Oh, hi, Jean. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I appreciate your being here. So we're talking about awakening challenges. I think you've been here for a little bit. And we're talking about the drastic nature of them. And so we can divide them into a couple of categories because we have a lot of stuff going on these days, which is about awakening. We have our personal challenges, which we could put over here in column A. And those would be the ones that I mentioned: illness, money, relationship, injury, death of a loved one. Okay, then over here in column B, we've got the collective awakening challenges. There is stuff going on in the United States, I think in Britain as well, and around the world, in Spain for sure. There are challenges that are shaking the foundation of our trust in our governments, in our trust in their, not only their ability, but their willingness to take care of us in the ways that they have in the past. You know, we're looking at things like healthcare insurance. Doesn't seem like our governments are interested in taking care of people in that way. Aid to dependent children, aid to disabled people. I mean, it's, oh, good, Jean, thank you. You were on for a while. Very glad you said hi, so I know that you're here. Excellent. Well, it's you and me right now, kid. So please jump in and let me know if you have an awakening challenge that you'd like to identify or even discuss, because what we find when we start delving into this is that the dynamics of the challenges are very parallel for all of us. The particulars may be different. So while I may have had panic attacks and the fragmentation of my good little Catholic girl transforming into another iteration of me, somebody else might have had a teenage kid in trouble that really sends you over the top with worry and anxiety and feeling like you just don't know what to place your trust in. Helene, hey there. I'm so glad you're here too. Excellent, excellent. So we're talking about awakening and what it is, and that question. And the question comes out of the fact that awakening challenges are so severe that we do end up kind of stepping back and saying, wait a second, how long is this going to take? Because I've got stuff to do. I've got a life to live. You know, I've got to earn money. I've got to. Hey, Susan, thank you for being here. So glad you made it. And so I'm inviting any of you who have an awakening challenge that you would like to share about or for us to discuss. Please, I invite you to make a comment about it. I've been through several awakening challenges, and that's why I know they are no fun. Jean says, I'm stuck in life situations that are not at all what I would like. Yeah, and what do we do with that? Because what we know is that resistance creates suffering. So the ego says, wait a second, this is not what I signed up for. And life says, well, I'm very sorry, but this is what I'm dishing out to you right now. And somewhere in between those two, we will find the opening that allows us to move through and get to what the purpose of the awakening challenges is, which is higher consciousness. That's what's waiting for us. Whether we're banging our heads against what's happening in our governments and in our political systems in our countries, or whether we're suffering and gnashing our teeth over our personal challenges and saying, who has not shaken a fist at heaven and said, really? Really? I try to be a good person. I'm living my life helping others, and this is what you lay on me at this particular time? Gee whiz. Thanks a lot. Anybody who has experienced an awakening challenge, and I will say, not all challenges lead to awakening. Not all challenges lead to awakening. It's up to us whether we choose to use an awakening as a spiritual tool to elevate our consciousness. I read a quote the other day by Brian Weiss, whom I respect a lot. I actually trained with him decades ago in past life regression therapy. And I will just paraphrase what he said, which is very familiar to me because I know this also. And that is that personal challenges are not always about karma or payback or punishment that the ego might have you believe. Personal challenges very often are things that, and this is a hard one to swallow sometimes, that we have signed up for before we came into this life, knowing the growth that we wanted to experience this time. Helene asked, does an awakening challenge need to be a huge clobber over the head? No. I mean, sometimes we have been inching our way toward an elevation of our consciousness, and so the smallest challenge that gets our attention is what one of my teachers years ago called a mini satori. In other words, it's a mini awakening. But, you know, it's like any series of baby steps. That last mini step catapults you into a new awareness, into a new reality. So it doesn't need to be a huge clobber over the head. It could be a fly buzzing up your nose. You know, it could be something small that triggers the shift. Susan says, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras talk about klesas, obstacles put in your path. Yes, go around, over, or work them into your plan. Absolutely. And my thinking is, if you go around, if you go over, then you're going to, on the spiral path, circle back around to that klesa, that obstacle. So you might as well try to relax and work it into your plan. Thanks, Susan. That's a really wonderful point. Helene says, I think I just had one, right? Yeah, you've been sharing over on our Miracles group. And I have to hand it to you because you really processed your way through some major, what I call sticks in your bicycle spokes. You know, the stick goes in and you go flying over the handlebars. Yeah, so that happened in a couple of ways for you. And you decided to get yourself grounded and to really look for, okay, what is the path that's opening to me right now because of this unexpected thing? Susan says, good point, hadn't thought of it that way. You mean about you might as well work it into your plan now, because otherwise on the spiral path, you'll come back around to it. Yeah, I do. I have, you know, another term we can use for these awakening challenges is dark night of the soul. So if you're familiar with that term and you've identified yourself as someone who has experienced a dark night of the soul, that's what we're talking about with these great big awakening challenges, because it feels like a dark place. It feels like everything I used to rely on doesn't work anymore. It feels like I've lost my way. I don't know where I am. Sometimes I don't even know who I am. Because the challenges require us, it's like shedding a garment. We're required to shed the garments that have identified us as who we've been. And before we put on the new garment, because we haven't even identified it yet, we don't even know what the next iteration of me is going to be. We feel naked, we feel raw, we feel ungrounded, we feel lost, and we feel scared. Just to make this real, because, you know, and those of you who know me know I'm not into airy-fairy, let's spiritual bypass and bunnies and rainbows. No, this stuff hurts. This stuff is, I mean, it's not called a challenge for nothing, and probably there should be a bigger word. Back in the day, Stan Groff wrote a book called Spiritual Emergency. And what that means is as we emerge spiritually to the next level and the next level, there is an emergency. There's an urgency about the emergence. So it's not for sissies. It's definitely not for sissies. And so, as Patanjali points out, we can go over it, we can go around it. And that's taking the easy way out, and that's not understanding that there are gifts inherent in the challenge, which if we work it into our plan, we will be able to enjoy. And look, I don't fault anybody for going around it or over it. Susan says, my awakening challenges have not been dark, thankfully. Just class sending me into roles I never wanted or taking away ones I was enjoying. Okay, well, then that certainly has created the emergence into the next iteration of you. I know that the iteration of you right now, because I know a little bit about your personal life, is not what and who you were a decade ago. You know, and you're feeling an undercurrent of the next emergence of the next iteration of who you are. So it's not, you know, you're not dealing with challenges that have been dark, as you said. And we can look at these on a continuum. Perhaps you didn't need something extreme. You needed a gentle shove in a direction, you know. Elaine says, oh boy, I recall a few of those. Seems now that the dark nights of the soul came when the hints and messages were there, but I ignored or avoided them. The universe hinted, nudged, and then clobbered to get my attention. You got it. You know, I'm fond of saying the universe will whisper to you, then the universe will talk a little louder, and then at some point you will have the universe screaming in your ear and shaking you till your bones rattle. One way or another, your attention will be gotten. So, and again, you know, I was going to say old enough, but I don't think it has anything to do with age. But I've been through a couple of these challenges where the status quo just seemed to unravel in a pretty scary way. And my ego, which really likes to have a certain amount of control, was very distressed by all that. Susan says, I'm trying to think of it all as shaping me and molding me for what's ahead. Yes. As you're shaped and molded into this next iteration of you, you become the perfect fit, like a key in a lock for who you are going to be for whatever is ahead. And I know you've been dreaming about what might be ahead for you in some joyful ways. Yeah. So any other questions or comments? I'm gonna talk about this again in the live stream on Thursday, and we can go more deeply into what these challenges look like, what they invite us to, and we might even take on the juicy topic of the soul plans that I believe we make before we come into this life, because that's where I know these challenges get set up. In fact, I got so clear on that I created an online course, very inexpensive online course that is basically journaling a sequence of questions. And the name of that course is, you ready? Who signed me up for this? Because that's how we feel. You know, that goes right along with how long is this going to take? Who signed me up for this? Like, I don't remember standing in line for this ticket. Well, no, your personality doesn't remember. But your soul sure does. Your soul sure does. And so on a spiritual path, if we can maintain the awareness, I thought so, because honestly, that was a question I was asking when I was going through my challenges. Who the hell signed me up for this? Are you kidding? That's that, really? This now? Me? Us? Come on. But when we go through the questions in that course, we get a really wonderful awareness and mini Satori about why we chose certain challenges and how we can use them to serve us on our path. So I'm going to close out the topic for today, and we'll pick it up again on Thursday. I hope you can join me. I'm going to invite you, if you are not already, to join us in a private Facebook group I have, which is about manifesting miracles with the Art of Miracles program, which I've created. You'll find that group, it's called the Conscious Woman's Miracle Circle. And I'll post that link in comments after we're finished here. I'm also available at www.janicemasters.com for private sessions, both ongoing coaching and also something that's called Intuitive Soul Consultation, which is a longer session where we bring a lot of very juicy stuff to the surface for your awareness. I'm also announcing today 2 gifts that I have been holding back in the closet for some reason for quite some time, and some inquiry over my birthday weekend helped me to realize that it really was time to share those gifts. And the first is channeling, and so I'm available for 15 or 30-minute channeling sessions. And the other thing is that I am planning a weekend workshop for women sometime this winter in Miami, in person. We will be processing, we'll be doing intuitive art, we'll be sharing stories, we'll be rewriting stories, we'll be talking about our journeys on the spiral path. We will be helping one another to manifest miracles. It's going to be juicy, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be in a beautiful place in the winter. So again, I'll post a link to the group, and I'll post a link to the online course, Who Signed Me Up for This. And I hope I'll see you on Thursday. This is Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama, at janicemasters.com. I hope you have a beautiful day, and happy Halloween. I hope you have fun. I'm going over later to see my grandkids in their costumes. They're all excited. Oh, well, you're welcome, Susan. I enjoy them, and thank you so much for showing up for them. I appreciate it. Okay. Hopefully I'll see you on Thursday. Have a great day. Love you all. Bye.